Mothers are fonder than fathers of their children because they are more certain they are their own. Happiness seems to depend on leisure. He who cannot be a good servant will not be a good master. The greatest of injustices is that which goes unnoticed. To run away from trouble is a form of cowardice, and while it is true that the suicide braves death, he does it not for some noble object, but to escape some ill. It is best to rise from life as from a banquet, neither thirsty nor drunken. Happiness is a quality of the soul, not a function of one's material circumstances. Virtue is the golden mean between two vices, the one of excess and the other of deficiency. He who is to be a good ruler must have first been ruled. To perceive is to suffer. A change in the nature of any one part of a system results in a change in the whole. Law is mind without reason. He who conquers his passions is truly a king. Time does not exist without change. Learning is not child's play. We cannot learn without pain. Liars, when they speak the truth, are not believed. The secret to humor is surprise. The difference between a learned man and an ignorant one is the same as that between a living man and a dead one. It is simplicity that makes the uneducated more effective than the educated when addressing popular audiences. To write well, express yourself like the common people, but think like a wise man. Virtue lies in our power, and similarly so does vice. All proofs rest on premises. Even when laws have been written down, they ought not always to remain unaltered. There must be a law that compels us to do good to others. True friends are a sure refuge in times of trouble. If things do not turn out as we wish, we must wish for them as they turn out. What we have to learn to do, we learn by doing. Where there is no law, there is no freedom. Virtue is not knowledge, but habit. Character may almost be called the most effective means of persuasion. Moral excellence is the natural reward of all virtue. The weak are always anxious for justice and equality. The strong pay no heed to either. Good sense is the foundation of a good life. The greatest crimes are caused by excess, not necessity. The happy man is the one who does virtuous acts. The life of moral virtue is the most pleasant. A virtuous person will always be happy, even in the face of misfortune. The noblest life is that lived in pursuit of knowledge. Each person possesses the faculties of moral choice. The key to happiness lies in moderation and balance. Pleasure is not the goal, but the reward of living virtuously. The good life is one lived in harmony with reason. Justice is the highest of virtues. Virtue is a state of character concerned with choice. A good life requires more than mere survival. Wisdom begins in wonder. True happiness comes from living a life of virtue. The intellect is the most divine of all human faculties. Living well and living happily are one and the same. Happiness depends upon ourselves. The roots of education are bitter, but the fruit is sweet. Knowing yourself is the beginning of all wisdom. Patience is bitter, but its fruit is sweet. It is the mark of an educated mind to be able to entertain a thought without accepting it. pleasure in the job puts perfection in the work. The whole is greater than the sum of its parts. Quality is not an act. It is a habit. He who has overcome his fears will truly be free. Dignity does not consist in possessing honors, but in deserving them. The ideal man bears the accidents of life with dignity and grace, making the best of circumstances. Courage is the first of human qualities because it is the quality which guarantees the others. What is a friend? A single soul dwelling in two bodies. The educated differ from the uneducated as much as the living from the dead. Happiness is the meaning and the purpose of life, the whole aim and end of human existence. There is no great genius without a mixture of madness. Man is by nature a social animal. The more you know, the more you realize you don't know. The soul never thinks without a picture. The man who is truly good and wise will bear with dignity whatever fortune sends. The educated differ from the uneducated as much as the living from the dead. Time crumbles things. Everything grows old under the power of time and is forgotten through the lapse of time. Friendship is a single soul dwelling in two bodies. A friend is a second self. Happiness is the settling of the soul into its most appropriate spot. It is of the nature of desire not to be satisfied, and most men live only for the gratification of it. The ideal man bears the accidents of life with dignity and grace, making the best of circumstances. He who overcomes his fears will be truly free. Courage is the mean between fear and recklessness. In all things of nature there is something of the marvelous. Hope is a waking dream. The end of labor is to gain leisure. Those who know do, those that understand teach. Nature does nothing uselessly. Injustice arises when equals are treated unequally, and also when unequals are treated equally. It is possible to fail in many ways, while to succeed is possible only in one way. It is the mark of an educated mind to be able to entertain a thought without accepting it. Man is a political animal. It is not once nor twice, but times without number, that the same ideas make their appearance in the world. Without friends, no one would choose to live, though he had all other goods. Democracy arose from men's thinking that if they are equal in any respect, they are equal absolutely. It is in justice that the ordering of society is centered. Happiness is an expression of the soul in considered actions. Character is that which reveals moral purpose. We are what we repeatedly do. Excellence, then, is not an act, but a habit. The life of money-making is one undertaken by compulsion. Youth is easily deceived because it is quick to hope. Great men are always of a nature originally melancholy. Pity is pain at the sight of another's misfortune. The aim of the wise is not to secure pleasure, but to avoid pain. The aim of art is to represent not the outward appearance of things, but their inward significance. The whole is greater than the part. Men are swayed more by fear than by reverence. He who has many friends has none. Man is the only animal whose desires increase as they are fed. Wishing to be friends is quick work. But friendship is a slow ripening fruit. The least initial deviation from the truth is multiplied later 1,000-fold. The only stable state is the one in which all men are equal before the law. Virtue is more clearly shown in the performance of fine actions than in the non-performance of base ones. The aim of the wise is not to secure pleasure, but to avoid pain. Philosophy begins in wonder. He who cannot be a good follower cannot be a good leader. All paid jobs absorb and degrade the mind. We become just by performing just actions, temperate by performing temperate actions, brave by performing brave actions. The wise man does not expose himself needlessly to danger, since there are few things for which he cares sufficiently. The most perfect political community is one in which the middle class is in control and outnumbers both of the other classes. No one loves the man whom he fears. There is a foolish corner in the brain of the wisest man. He who is to be a good ruler must have first been ruled. Fear is pain arising from the anticipation of evil. It is the mark of a great mind to dislike greatness and prefer things in measure to excess. In making a speech, one must study 3 points. First, the means of producing persuasion. Second, the language. Third, the proper arrangement of the various parts of the speech. Man is the only animal capable of reasoning. Democracy arose from men's thinking that if they are equal in any respect, they are equal absolutely. He who wishes to be a good ruler should first have been ruled. Learning is an ornament in prosperity, a refuge in adversity, and a provision in old age. Equality consists in the same treatment of similar persons. The greatest virtues are those which are most useful to other persons. A friend to all is a friend to none. Happiness is an activity of the soul in accordance with perfect virtue. The secret to humor is surprise. Hope is a waking dream. One swallow does not make a summer, neither does one fine day. Similarly, one day or brief time of happiness does not make a person entirely happy. For the things we have to learn before we can do them, we learn by doing them. The one exclusive sign of thorough knowledge is the power of teaching. Love is composed of a single soul inhabiting 2 bodies. In poverty and other misfortunes of life, true friends are a sure refuge. The life of money-making is one undertaken by compulsion, and wealth is evidently not the good we are seeking. The ultimate value of life depends upon awareness and the power of contemplation rather than upon mere survival. We acquire virtues by first doing virtuous acts. No great mind has ever existed without a touch of madness. A constitution is the arrangement of magistracies in a state. The aim of the wise is not to secure pleasure, but to avoid pain. Wisdom is the reward you get for a lifetime of listening when you would rather have talked. Change in all things is sweet. A tyrant must put on the appearance of uncommon devotion to religion. It is easy to perform a good action, but not easy to acquire a settled habit of performing such actions. We become just by performing just actions. Criticism is something we can avoid easily by saying nothing, doing nothing, and being nothing. Men acquire a particular quality by constantly acting in a particular way. Happiness belongs to the self-sufficient. A likely impossibility is always preferable to an unconvincing possibility. The worst form of inequality is to try to make unequal things equal. I count him braver who overcomes his desires than him who conquers his enemies. All persons ought to endeavor to follow what is right, and not what is established. Nature abhors a vacuum. Friendship is essentially a partnership. Memory is the scribe of the soul. The beginning of reform is not so much to equalize property as to train the noble sort of natures not to desire more. Personal beauty is a greater recommendation than any letter of reference. Republics decline into democracies, and democracies degenerate into despotisms. Philosophy can make people sick. The high-minded man must care more for the truth than for what people think. To lead an orchestra, you must turn your back on the crowd. Doubt is the beginning of wisdom. The hardest victory is over self. Happiness is the exercise of virtue. The whole is more than the sum of its parts. Excellence is never an accident. It is always the result of high intention, sincere effort, and intelligent execution. Education is the best provision for old age. The worst form of inequality is to try to make unequal things equal. All human actions have one or more of these 7 causes: chance, nature, compulsions, habit, reason, passion, desire. To avoid criticism, say nothing, do nothing, be nothing. Happiness is a state of activity. All men by nature desire knowledge. Where your talents and the needs of the world cross, there lies your vocation. Good habits, formed at youth, make all the difference. He who cannot be a good follower cannot be a good leader. The law is reason, free from passion. Those who educate children well are more to be honored than they who produce them, for these only gave them life, those the art of living well. To perceive is to suffer. Moral excellence comes about as a result of habit.